Hey everyone, thanks for listening or watching another episode of the KPIs podcast. I am pumped for today's podcast. As I've been editing it, I'm like, man, it's so good. It has so much great information. Our guest today is Hannah Spicer. I first met her in 2021 when I started selling at Click because she was a Click partner. I loved her drive and her personality. She transitioned away from that role and we lost touch for a few years. But then I saw she took over her father's other company and started following her closely. I asked for some advice. We ended up on a call, and then she sent me 10 pages of notes. And as I read those notes and articles, I was like, I have to have her on this podcast. Hannah's passion for seeing companies grow, maintain, and build a great culture, and then be successful because of that is evident throughout this interview. You will want to listen to this podcast a few times. If you don't, you need to listen to it a few times because as I've gone back and listened to it multiple times for editing, there are so many great thoughts on personal branding, growth, and what companies miss out on and not thinking about their current people and protecting the culture. Just get ready. I can't wait. Let's get into it. Hannah, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Kurt.
So tell me a little bit about Build a Kick-Ass Company and what you do.
Absolutely. So the Kick-Ass Company is all about creating workplaces where people genuinely love to be, places where Monday mornings don't feel like a punishment and certainly don't feel like a trap. And when I say kick-ass, it is not meant to offend anybody. It is meant to evoke something within you because I believe kick-ass is a choice. You either choose to wake up and have a kick-ass day or you don't. And so we deliver training, consulting, keynotes. We cover a lot of different things. We focus on leadership development, team dynamics, tools like personality dimensions to really help leaders and teams work better together and truly evolve their skills. I believe, Kurt, that training should never be boring, and that's something that we have never been accused of in over 40 years of doing business. And if training is boring, then I don't think it's being done right.
Agreed. So I want to talk a little bit about how we kind of met. So you were at a previous company, which was a partner of Click, and we kind of met early on and kind of involved in that whole data space. So because you were involved in that data space, that's how we met. Why do you think data is so important to companies right now?
I think that data is like the secret sauce for companies. And it's what is, I believe, taking companies from guessing to knowing. And we all know that in today's wild world, everything is moving fast. Companies need to make decisions quicker. They need to be more confident. And as you and I both know, data gives them the insights to do that. So for me, when I look at data in a workplace, it's not about numbers on a screen. It is about really understanding the trends and predicting behaviors, identifying those opportunities, which I believe that organizations and teams and leaders will otherwise miss without the data, whether that's improving customer experience or streamlining operations or better hiring decisions, whatever that is, data provides that clarity to help companies stay competitive. So data, in my view, is a necessity in order to thrive because otherwise we just have a whole lot of blind spots going on. And you know me, Kurt, I love the leadership aspect. So when I look at the leadership side and why data is important, when leaders use data effectively, and I mean truly effectively and open, honest, transparent, that is what starts to build trust with their teams. People want to know that decisions are being made on the facts and not those awful gut feelings, not the office politics. They want to know it's on the facts. So data, what it allows leaders to do is to show the why behind their choices, to communicate that in a storytelling way. And I've seen it. It helps teams rally around that shared direction, around that shared vision, and that supports team building. So what I see is when you combine the power of data with strong leadership and a strong culture of learning, that's when companies really start to kick ass. Kurt, have you seen Ted Lasso before?
Yes, love Ted Lasso. Honestly, I was wearing a Richmond shirt earlier today and decided to change it and have it be a little bit less Ted Lasso for this interview.
I would have loved it. It is one of my top 3 shows ever. It's incredible. And why I'm bringing that into our conversation is because in one of these scenes, the famous dart scene, and anybody watching this, you got to Google it. I will not go into the full story, but Ted Lasso talks about a quote by Walt Whitman, and he says, "Be curious, not judgmental." And ever since then, it just resonated so well with me. I incorporated into my training, my own personal philosophy, but I actually think it aligns beautifully with the role of data in the workplace. Curiosity is essential for asking questions. It is essential for exploring patterns. It is essential for digging deeper to really understanding the depth of those numbers. So when leaders and teams can really, truly embrace that mindset towards their data and they see that as not a threat, but an opportunity, that's when I see meaningful change start to happen. And that just means that you and I, we become a catalyst for that meaningful change.
Agreed. So we got the data part, we got this, but I would say how do you convince, because you do a lot of leadership training and stuff, how do you convince leaders to be curious and to go a little bit deeper? Because I'm sure we've both experienced leaders that like, why is this happening? And they want the one word or they want the one sentence answer, and there's way more to it and you want to share more, but you kind of know they just want the one, but it's not enough. Like they really need, how do you instill that in leaders and really anybody to kind of say, be curious, this is why this matters? What do you do to do that?
I will say my biggest thing around this is to bring humanity back into the workplace. And this is a line that people hear all the time from me, because I think we're in this world where in society and workplaces that we're always talking about, you have to be busy, busyness is better and constant activity. And, I will be the first one to say that I was that, hustle and grind person. I would be, ask me what I was doing on the weekend and I'd say, oh, I'm working tonight and I'm working on the weekend. And I think we just have it so backwards. I think we need to really rewire our brains. And so people have really gotten away from being curious because we have forced people to think in a certain way. And we've said that, this is how we do things around here, or we've done it for the last 20 years, so we can't change. We need to flip that script and start saying that we can honor and respect our past of what got us here today, but that doesn't mean that it's the right thing that's going to get us into the future. So bringing humanity, asking questions, and a large part of this comes from leaders being able to cultivate a culture where people are okay to ask why, where it's not a bad thing, that there's no fear of reprimand for asking questions, even if they may seem silly. We really need to start demonstrating that through all levels of our workplace.
Yeah, it's really true, because there's just something when a leader cares, and that there's levels of care, right? But
Yes.
the caring I'm talking about and what we just said is like the level of care of like, tell me why this isn't working, but they really truly want to understand the depths of why it isn't working. That is a level of care that goes, this person really cares. They might not care about my family. They might not care about what I do on the weekend. That's up to them. They don't have to do that. But the level of care, you care about why what you pay me to do is huge, right? And keeps people connected to say, and still working for a company to say, this leader cares about me, and like, I'll just stay with this great leader.
Yeah. Everyone wants to feel at the end of the day, I don't care what role you are in, what industry, is that everyone wants to feel like they are valued and supported and heard, and that they contributed at the end of the day. Unfortunately, when we are in such a fast-paced environment and we don't take the time to stop and have those genuine, authentic, pieces of recognition or conversations, that is a huge gap that I'm seeing in workplaces right now.
Yeah. So in that, I was going to ask you, because I know some of what Build a Kick-Ass Company does, right? Like, I would say, I hate keep using the term like post-COVID, but it was such a thing. And I was actually at a bar the other night talking with a friend about like COVID for some people is like the 9/11, right? Where were you when this happened? And you remember that night or the week following and all that stuff. But it was such a big shift in how companies work and employees interact with each other and all that stuff. What do you see as the toughest thing companies are dealing with right now to keep employees engaged and happy?
So I really think that what challenges that people are facing now is meeting employees where they are. And what I mean by that, before anybody gets angry hearing that, is that the workplace is more dynamic than it has ever been before, with remote work, hybrid work, generational shifts, evolving expectations about what work should be. People want, just as you said, they want more than a paycheck. I mean, we all need the pay, we know that, but they want purpose. They want learning and growth opportunities. They want the sense that their work matters and that someone actually cares. And when they don't have that, another kind of big hurdle is leading right into burnout. And I'm seeing that across all industries and all sizes of teams right now. After everything that we have collectively been through over the last couple of years, employees are tired. They are exhausted. So many people are reevaluating what balance even looks like in their lives, just because, as I said, we've always operated that way. doesn't mean we need to continue doing that going forward. And I think that companies and teams, we can't accept mediocrity. Is that if companies fail to address this bigger piece, then we are risking losing top talent, like the people that are so passionate. We're risking losing them to burnout or to competitors that are offering more humanity in their workplace. I've always felt that your most passionate people, when you start to see them around the table and they are in that artificial harmony mode where they're just nodding their head and going along with it, that is a huge red flag, because your passionate people should never be going silent. So companies where they're having to shift is to find ways to reconnect, to intentionally create environments where, engagement and morale thrive. And I really, that intentionality is huge. That intentional piece is something that we have to relearn as not only workplaces, but just as human beings in general. So I think it comes down to this, is that companies need to invest in their people, both in their skills, their product, and in their overall well-being. And creating workplaces where people feel, as I said, seen and supported, valued. It doesn't have to be complicated. That's what stresses me out so much. It could be as much as just genuinely listening to understand, not just asking a question and nodding your head and saying, okay, next meeting, I got to go. Showing that genuine appreciation for what someone is bringing to a team or an organization to level us up, and creating opportunities for growth. And I am sorry, but it is not the ping pong tables. It is not the gift card. Those are nice, but they do nothing to address the challenges that organizations are feeling right now.
I want to go a level deeper because, say, without doing a pitch to your company, but I'll get there. It's like, say, wow, what she just said sounds great. We need to get them in and we need to hire them. And you do a great thing about, you need to be curious and you need to care about your employees, and you do it. Many companies see the need to do that, hire someone like you, end the training and go, check that box. People should feel more cared for now because we had a training to tell us that we should care more, but none of it, like, it went here, it didn't seat here. How do you, and feel free to just go for it, like, how do you get people to realize, like, don't just check the box telling people you care, go deeper, or it's all just for naught.
Right. And Kurt, it's funny because I've actually said no to working with companies before, because if I find out that it's just to check a box, truthfully, you are wasting your time and energy and money. And I want to work with organizations who are looking to make change, and change doesn't happen overnight. This is not something where I come in with a kick-ass training and that you are going to be 100% better tomorrow. That just doesn't even make sense. So when I go in, if people say that, no, I am committed to this, and I get the organization and leaders' commitment, we will not do a leadership survey or engage your teams unless you are actually committed to making this change happen, because otherwise what you are is a flavor of the month, right? We've all seen it before. We send out surveys, once or twice a year because we have to check off the box on our strategic plan. But then we wonder why, and we get frustrated with the teams when they stop actually answering the surveys and they don't give context and open-ended. Well, why? Is because they don't think you care anymore, because they don't see a connection to the survey and the intentional actions from whether that's leadership, teams, or the organization. So when I work with an organization, I know they want it. I know they're willing to challenge their way of thinking. I know they're willing to have the tough conversations. And we use that, and I mix training and consulting into my sessions, but my big thing is the application, right? If we are coming together, I don't want it just to be an awesome day when we came together. I want your team to say, look, we can take these tools or these resources or build upon that conversation. And then now we're going to hold ourselves accountable to meeting in 2 weeks to continue this conversation. If I don't have that commitment, I can't get behind it, because I am way too passionate about this. And I love to see my clients, their cultures thrive. I like to see their teams changing. People contact me and say, Hannah, you were totally right in training. I believe that everything I offer is a professional tool, but it should double as a personal gift as well. What I mean by that is, if I can go in with a tool like personality dimensions, or I can go in and work with your leaders to hone their skills, evolve their skills, have the tough conversations they've been avoiding, well, then I know they're going to go home and build a happy family. And if you've ever seen a dog, when you look at a dog and they kind of tilt their head and they're like, what are you talking about? That's sometimes the look I get. And I love that look because it means they're curious. So for me, if I can help you be a better communicator at work, or help you not avoid those tough conversations, you've had great interactions at work. you're going to go home and you're going to look for everything that's right. You're going to be wanting to go to the gym, wanting to walk the dog, wanting to hang out with your kids or your spouse or whatever you like to do. But if we've had a crappy experience at work, we've all been there before. We go home and we look for, the dishes that are in the sink. We look for the shoes that are in the foyer, and we're looking for everything that's wrong in the world. And so everything is about reframing the way that we view our here and now and the future as well.
Why do you think oftentimes leaders get to a point, you have a good leader, I want feedback, I want to know the tough stuff, I know it's going to take time, and they get to a point where they don't want the tough stuff because it involves a ton of work? Why do you think there's a level in where that happens? Like, why do people just kind of give up on doing that?
I've actually asked over the last couple of months some of the leaders I work with, and that just bluntly, why are you afraid of this? And it often comes down to they were never actually given the proper tools or training to know how to. I have seen a lot of great individuals who are fantastic at their job. They get promoted into leadership. And honestly, Kurt, they said it's like a deer in headlights. They get into the leadership role, they're motivated, they're engaged, they're inspired. And like a month later, they're wondering, what the heck did I just do? Like, did I sign up for something that was totally wrong? And they start doubting themselves. And so we need to be able to equip these leaders, and not just once when they are in a leadership role. It is so ongoing, over time, because there's no magic wand that says if you do these 5 steps, you'll be a kick-ass leader. It means that you always have to be willing to have those tough conversations, to challenge your way of thinking, to think outside that box or whatever it is. There is no perfect formula. It just means that you're willing to show up. You're willing to choose to be that kick-ass leader, to choose to have those tough conversations, to choose to be that support and guidance for your team. So it often comes down to a lack of training, which has a direct relation into that lack of confidence for people.
You made the shift, and I was going to shift into like this idea of building a culture of leadership. So like you're already there. So to me, growing leaders means creating a space for employees, like you just said, to figure out if they really want to be in leadership or not, because it always sounds great. You see this, you see that, and then you get in and you're like, now you got to make a tough decision, or now you got to fire somebody, and you're like, I don't think I want to do this anymore, right? Can you share your thoughts on why leaders should always be investing in the next group of leaders?
So I'm a huge advocate for leadership, huge advocate for mentorship programs at all levels. Because leadership isn't just about those at the very top of the organization. And I don't know how many times that I will say that until I'm blue in the face, honestly, Kurt, because we need to rewire our brains on how we think about leadership. It doesn't have to be what we learned, 20, 30, 40 years ago. It is very different. And why is because organizations are different. Teams are different. People are complex human beings. There is no foolproof, plan or guide. And so we have to challenge that thinking. And I think it all comes back to empowering everyone to take accountability, everyone to take ownership and lead in their own way. So developing that mindset, what I start to see is it drives leadership across the culture to support the engagement, to support the performance. So when you invest in leadership development throughout an entire company, what you're doing is creating of leaders. So there's my little data drop there, right?
Yeah, and sales drop, right? And sales drop, yeah.
Exactly. And so when you have the pipeline of leaders who are equipped to handle challenges, who are equipped to make decisions, who are confident and they're able to motivate others, I think that's key. So think about it. Those leaders who explain that they're like a deer in headlights. I have talked to people before and they said it is their worst nightmare of experience because it was so different from the doing as a team member. So they were great at doing, but leadership is a whole new set of skills. So if we take that and we say, if we start developing emerging leaders and we develop that mindset versus waiting until someone has that official title, then we are training those people in leadership principles to build their toolkit now. As you offer that, what I really like, and you can tell I get way too passionate about this, giving people the opportunity and the permission to decide is this role and the responsibilities of leadership, does it align with your strengths and your vision or not? And it's okay if it doesn't. Some people participate in leadership programs, and that's when that aha light bulb moment hits. And they say, I don't actually want a leadership title, but maybe they are looking for the depth in their role to practice these skills. Where I view that is it becomes not an investment in a few people, but it's an investment in the people that you have hired for a reason. The ones that you said, I see them helping build a wicked culture here. It helps you protect the workplace culture that we all want. And honestly, it protects the future as well. If we don't take care of our people, if we don't invest back, you are literally, I believe, leaving the future up to chance of what's going to happen.
Very true. I'll say personally, right, I've seen people that are great at coaching and mentoring, and people come to advice. And a lot of times that's viewed as like, this person's going to be a great leader. But the tough stuff they struggle with. And maybe it's not a leader. Maybe it's that coach, or it's a mentorship role. Maybe it's like, you would be great at coaching. Like, we give you a special title that you also get to do some coaching, and people send you there, rather than now you have to make these decisions and you have to update pipelines and you have to chase people down for forecasts and you have to do all that stuff that when you get into it, you're like, God, that sounds boring. Like, I thought I'd just be like melding young minds and getting them ready. And you're like, instead, I'm showing up to meetings that are boring, and I have to update my forecast, which is boring. And I have to chase these people that are like, should know better, that they need to update their forecast every week, but they don't. But that idea, but I love that thought. I'm like, we have to invest in people as leaders. And the part of that investment is figuring out, do they really want to be leaders, or do they not? Do they just think it because they've seen these things? And that is an investment that sometimes will not pay off for the company, because it's like, well, they're not in leadership. Yeah, but you've invested. I don't think there's ever a problem investing in helping people understand who they are and what their strengths and their weaknesses are.
Right. And Kurt, that is such a key piece. What you talked about there is use the strengths and the weaknesses. Is we can't be a master at everything. And that's why one of the tools I use is personality dimensions, because we're so good at, people pointing out where we suck, right? Where we're not great. I could give you a list of my weaknesses right now, but when we ask people, and I have before, of saying, what are your strengths? People literally struggle. Like, I see people when I ask them that, and they're looking over at the ceiling, the wall, they're looking around the room, trying to see what someone else is writing, because we don't spend time actually uncovering those strengths. And if you want to build a strength-based culture and not just to check that off the box, then we need to understand and help other people understand that this is where you are awesome. This is where you're strong. If you're someone who is great on the fly and you love the chaos, you love change, then maybe let's not give you the tasks or maybe the role that has a ton of, you need to have this report Monday at 5 p.m. and this report at Tuesday at 9 a.m. and so much structure and routine. Not that they can't do that role or do those tasks, but we're going to be draining their energy, and they're going to finish work at the end of the day and be like, what did I even accomplish? So understanding the strengths not only benefits the team, but that individual. And now we build our strengths to support the strategic plan, to understand the data a little bit better. And that's how you go into the future with I don't even know what's going to happen in the next couple of years. I don't think any of us really know, but understanding the strengths allows us to be agile and position different individuals based upon what we need. And that helps the learning and growth piece that everyone is after right now.
Yeah, so true. So one of the questions that I always ask on the podcast is, what is your advice to people to become known in a company and really establish themselves?
It's funny because I've had a few people reach out to me in the last couple of weeks, complete strangers on LinkedIn, and they've asked me almost the exact same question. And because I think this is something that a lot of people are struggling with, because we have never seen teams and organizations change so much in terms of individuals, right? That turnover is there. People are leaving roles that they've been in for 20, 30 years saying, this is my time to make that move. So my biggest piece of advice for anyone looking to establish themselves is there's a couple of things. So to focus on building strong relationships. I think that is key no matter what. But you also need to demonstrate your value consistently. And I don't think it's just about who you are, but it's about how you choose to show up. And I hear that from people, right? You may not have that skill today, but if you're sitting there saying, I'm willing to put in the hard work, or I want to go and help someone else out, that is going to help you get noticed or established. So I always say, start by being that go-to person in your area of expertise. And that could be taking on a tough project, or getting creative, offering solutions when, challenges arise, or just simply going out of your way to help someone. The more you add value, the more that you'll find you'll be able to establish yourself. So I think that nothing changes unless you're willing to challenge yourself. And I mean to think differently. I mean to think boldly. And it's also showing up as your authentic, genuine self is important. And that goes to what we just talked about of the strengths, standing them and playing to them as well. Looking to your team to say, hey, I can't do this, but you're wicked at this. Can we team up? As individuals, we need to really start focusing on those strengths and applying that to our environment. That will build trust in the relationships. It will build really great experiences at work. Because at the end of the day, and I've seen this, you can be the smartest person in the room, but if people don't trust you, then unfortunately that wisdom is in one ear and out the other. It goes to waste. So then we need to, to establish is be curious. So I go back to that always. Be curious and ask questions. Show that you're engaged, but it's not a fake way to show that you're engaged. You should really want that. And why I like this part is because it helps you learn more, which can honestly open doors for you and can allow you to contribute in new and meaningful ways. And I think the last piece that's really important is you cannot forget to advocate for yourself. Let people know what you are capable of. Sometimes we just assume that people love the task that they've done for the last 5 or 10 years, and they don't. They hate it. They dread going into work. So be vocal. People know what you're capable of or what you want to learn. And sometimes it's easy to assume that your hard work is going to speak for itself, but you gotta let other people know, here are your achievements. And the big thing is establishing yourself. It takes time just like anything. But through the consistency, through those relationships, through that dedication or desire, whatever you want to call it, doesn't happen overnight, but it will happen. Where this is key is those intentional actions need to take place. And that's where I was saying that intentional piece is missing. We live in that society where it's the busyness, and we miss putting together that intentional plan that says, how am I going to move forward as an individual, as a team, as an organization? And so we really have to take a look from a bigger perspective and get granular on those pieces and be okay to challenge, the status quo that I think a lot of people and organizations have been living is fight the damn mediocre already, because it's not okay. It is not going to support your growth or the team's growth.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about there's so many times that we see somebody who's been at a company for a while or is well established and well known, and you kind of see that like, man, I want that. And we expect that it's going to happen in 3 months or 6 months as we join a company and all that. And that it didn't happen for that person in 3 months. It took time and it's patience, right? Back to the curious thing, be curious, be patient. It takes time. This world of being in a career, in corporate, in some sort of setting like this is not the instant gratification that you get from making a video on TikTok, if it exists anymore, right? Or Twitter and posting it and the likes and the comments and all that stuff. It takes longer. Those things can help you, but it is about patience and consistency and just stick with it. So that just hit me we can't, it's so much about instant gratification, but to build a worthwhile career takes you going and doing your own thing. And my God, that is scary. So you have your choice.
Right.
Go be scary, make $0 and go find it, or figure out how to build skills while you're doing this and become something better over time so that you can help others and do that.
Yeah. My dad used to call that the gratification bounce, and it would always frustrate him because he's like, people want something fast. And we've gone further away from that even over the last 5 and 10 years. And so we're not willing to put down a plan and stick to it. We're not willing to, if there's a course that takes a year to do, people say, well, I can do a free course online for a week. Okay, those are 2 different opportunities there. And I think the mindset that we have to be okay with challenging ourselves is, do you see this as an opportunity or do you see this as an obligation? If I see learning or my role within a company as an opportunity, then I'm going to shift the way that I work. I'm going to shift my relationships. But if I see it as an obligation because I just need to have the money to put the food on the table and the roof over my head, well, I'm not going to care about building the relationships, care about trying to learn and develop new skills. And so we have to check ourselves first and say, what mindset am I coming into this with? And understand how that is impacting those outcomes. If you just want to hop to another job in a year or 2, then maybe you're okay with that. But if you're looking to grow your career into, someone where you can look and say, I did that, like I built this kick-ass career, then you got to be willing to put that hard work in, because no one is going to do it for you. And my grandpa and my dad always used to say, and I love it, I have this on my fridge, I talk about it in training, is that success is a split-second decision. And it's all the fear and the agonizing and the doubt that takes up so much time. And hearing that was so powerful, because that's exactly what it is. We make excuses for ourselves. But at the end of the day, if you want something different, then you have to be willing to make a change, because that same old thinking is going to give you the same old results. Why would you expect that anything is going to change? Whether you're in leadership or at a team level or an organization, nothing will change unless you are willing to think differently. And I go back to think boldly.
So good.
I want to add, I just wish more people would talk about this and talk about how, data and people can coexist in the same space. They should never be silos. I still don't understand why people say data is one thing and our leaders are another. And no, bring it all together. Click is very big. I see that with Click. It's the storytelling. Harness the power of storytelling. I see people say, start bringing those soft skills in, and you can call them whatever you want. I don't like the term soft skills because I think they're damn hard. And they're things that we're taught when we're younger. And then as we get older, it's like, oh, you don't need to know how to communicate and just avoid that conflict, or, go headstrong, dig your heels in. We lose the most fundamental skills, and storytelling is a skill that people no longer have because we've allowed our creativity and imagination to get squashed because we're not willing to get curious. We're not willing to challenge. And that is the biggest gap that I see right now.
It goes back to that quick answers. Like,
right.
How do I deliver the quick answer to you rather than make it an engaging story that people remember, like 3 weeks from now, 6 months from now, about remember that story about this? Like, those things stick rather than the quick answers. I mean, that's going back to when I was a pastor, right? That was it. How do you involve story? And I remember stories from pastors and youth pastors. I don't know what the heck they were talking about. I don't remember the details anymore, but I remember the story that led to whatever they were trying to get across, because story is so impactful. Well, Hannah, thank you so much for being here today. Man, we packed in a lot of great information that I think is going to turn into some great LinkedIn stuff, and I hope that people get a lot out of this podcast. Hannah, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Kurt. I'm excited because I've always wanted to be on one of these podcasts with you. So one of my goals on my vision board has come true.
Yes, I'm glad we nailed it. 2025 off to a good start.
There
I love
we
it.
go.
I love it. Hannah, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kurt.